Positioning. Where are you on the map? Why are you there? Why does this guy stink? Some very important questions. Positioning is kind of everything. It has a huge part in winning gunfights, taking space, holding sites, getting trades, and winning rounds. I'm gonna break it all down for you right after a word from the sponsor of this video, SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is a trusted automated CS2 trading site. It's super easy to use. All you have to do is pick something in your inventory, check how much it's worth, and then go get something new from the monkey. What's also super nice is the filters you can use to narrow down your searches. You can either use your skins to trade for new ones or deposit money with their 30% bonus offer. This becomes 35% when you use my code Wilson. Please use it. Using my code, you can also get up to $5 for free. Use my code Wilson. Link is in the description. Because positioning in CS2 is such a ginormous topic, I've broken it down into two types. The first one is macro positioning, and the second one is micro positioning. Macro positioning is the zoomed out, more team-based thinking about positioning. This is where we're looking at the minimap and we think of each player as an X. We're not individuals, we're just a group of X's. When we look at these X's, what is the key to winning this round? What space are we fighting for, and what space are we maybe giving up a little bit in exchange for fighting for this space? So while from that zoomed out perspective it's less individualistic, macro positioning has a huge effect on your decision making within micro positioning. Micro positioning is probably more like what you think about when you first think about positioning. What angles am I holding? How am I playing a site? Am I playing aggressive? Am I playing passive? This is the type of positioning that you're mostly thinking about during a game. On T side, micro positioning is a bit more nuanced than it is on CT side. On T side, spacing is super important. How we're swinging angles in a way that allows us to get traded or to be the trader. Clearing space as we get through sites. Those are the micro positional types of things that you need to think about on T side, and I'm going to explore in this video. Now that we have a good general idea of macro and micro for both T side and CT side, let's zoom in and let's get more detailed. Let's focus on CT side macro positioning to start. The first thing in terms of CT side macro positioning that we need to talk about are defaults. A default, true to its name, is effective macro positioning that teams can play by default. This means that we're sending numbers to where we need to take space, to where we need to hold. For example, we have 2 on B because B has 2 entrances. We have 2 on mid because mid control is quite important. And then we have 1 anchoring A because there's 1 entrance to A. Now that's the entrance to player ratio isn't a universal rule. I'm going to show on the screen a typical default on CT side for every map. There's actually another video I made where I ran through every single default for CT side and it took kind of forever, but if you want to go watch that, you can watch that. I'll link it down below. But the big thing to know about the default is that as we stray away from our typical default, we're forfeiting control of one space for control of another. For example, one of these mid guys can swing over towards E-box at the beginning of the round and we can send 2 towards E-box and we can fight canals that way. Or this mid guy can go A instead, and we can have 2 walk through A main and push out through A. This weakens mid, but strengthens our A control. So if you feel like a team is doing the same shit over and over and over again to you guys, you can change up your default. For example, on Anubis, lots of times you're gonna get teams that really like B. They send like 3 outside B main, they send 2 towards E-box, and they just go for B splits every round. That's when you start realizing, okay, maybe we should stray away from our typical default and send 3 towards B instead, and then just let there be 1 mid and then 1 A. So in terms of CT side defaults, my practical advice to you is to get comfortable in one position and understand your responsibilities when you play that position. For example, you could be an E-box player on Anubis. You could be an A anchor. Play a position, get comfortable with it, learn the utility for it, and become really good at it. Now, with that piece of advice in mind, right? Get really good at one position, learn all your util, etc. Still be flexible. Don't be the stubborn prick who has to play E-box or else they're incredibly ineffective. So let people take your spot. If they want to play E-box, okay, fine. I'll go play mid and I'll have impact mid and I'll figure out how to play mid. Fill the gap. At the beginning of the round, look at the minimap. Where are my teammates going? Oh, okay, we're sending 3 towards B. I'll fill the gap mid. I'll take mid and I'll have impact here. Fill the gap. Play the space that you are needed. Play the space that isn't being filled by other players. The next CT side macro positioning aspect that we have to talk about is rotating. Rotating is where you move from one space to another from a macro positioning standpoint. One of the worst pieces of advice you'll hear about rotating is to wait until you see the bomb. If you see the T's pushing a site on the minimap with bomb, yes, you should rotate. But you also need to anticipate things, especially on some CT defaults, depending on what position you're playing. Some positions are rotator positions. So if we're playing 2 mid, one of these mid players is a fast rotate. So if mid is very quiet and the T's aren't rushing mid or aren't pressuring it too heavily, the second player is free to go towards A to strengthen the A hold or to go towards B to strengthen the B hold. There's no reason we both have to sit on mid and just wait until we see bomb in the minimap. We need to anticipate things and bolster our defense towards sites that we think the T's are going to go to. It can be incredibly powerful to clear the space that you were holding before you rotate. For example, if mid is really quiet and I've just been holding it like this on a little off angle, before I think I need to rotate, I should clear this and make sure nobody's lurking up mid before I immediately run away. When I run away, I'm giving sound cues that, hey, I'm leaving. I'm telling this T that you can take this space. So it can be really valuable to make sure that, okay, we're good. There's no lurks here. I'm going to rotate now too. Communicate your rotates. Macro positioning is a team-based thing. X's and O's on the minimap. So when you communicate your rotates, that tells the other players what space is open and what space is not. If I rotate off mid, I was solo mid and we have a solo A player, so I'm leaving mid fully open. I need to tell that A player that, hey, mid is now open, I'm leaving that space. That can inform the A player, okay, maybe I should play A bit more passive and I should come over towards cams and hold mid from here. And then we can play retake towards A. Or it could inform that A player, maybe I should take some space towards A main, and then we can give mid, let them come through A, and then I have a power position here in A main where we can crunch the T's very quickly. So communicate your intentions, communicate your rotates, because that gives the info to your teammates that, hey, this space is open, this space is not, you need to react to that. Another macro positioning thing you need to be aware of and you need to know is gamble stacking. Gamble stacking typically occurs in the mid round. Once we've gotten some info, once some kills have occurred, that's when we start to gamble stack. Now we gamble stack, especially when we're low on numbers, when we have fewer players than our opponent does. Let's say it's a 3v5 here on Anubis. If we play 1 on A and we play 1 on mid and we play 1 on B, we're not holding shit, right? The T's have a 5v1 essentially everywhere. When we're in these man down situations, really the only way we're gonna hold sites is if one of these guys has an insane hero play and just gets like 3 kills, 4 kills, or if we gamble stack. If we feel like it's going to be B, let's commit our numbers over towards B. So then if they do come B, we have a 3v5 as CTs, which is very winnable. If they don't come B, okay, then we can just save. We can save our guns into the next round. Unlucky, go next. Now, gamble stacks can be a bit more flexible than that. For example, if we feel like it's going to be A, we can play 1 cake, maybe 1 heaven, and then 1 cams over here just spotting mid, playing for info here on mid, so that we're not leaving the entire map open except for A. We still have some info on other parts of the map. We're just selling B. So the concept of selling space is very important because when we're low on numbers, we can't control the whole map anymore. We don't have 5 people to hold every single choke point. We have to sell space in exchange for having a better hold in other space. Similar to that idea of selling space, another concept you need to know is retaking, playing for retake. This is where we allow the T's to take a site, and our goal is to play for the retake. Similar to gamble stacking, we can send numbers towards a different part of the map. For example, on Anubis, we can send 3 towards B. 1 guy can flash through for 2 guys. And I missed the flash, of course, but we can take space outside of B. But the problem with that, right, like we talked about with defaulting, is that now we only have 1 mid and we only have 1 A. So if the T's do like a fast mid or a fast A, we're kind of screwed, right? So instead of that, we can play for retake. And typically on Anubis, the site that you play for retake for is A site. Retaking on A site is a bit easier than retaking on B site. So what that means is that we can sell A, we can be playing for retake on A, and we can keep 2 mid and 3 towards towards B so that we have a good hold mid. We can kill any lurks or any pushes mid, and we can take space outside of B here in exchange for playing for retake on A. So I think you're seeing the pattern of granting space and taking space. We can't take everything at once because we don't have the numbers to. If we play a typical default 2B, 2 mid, 1A, and then one guy swings B main, one guy swings E box, one guy pushes A main, two guys run out mid, it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to effectively take space anywhere because we don't have the numbers to. That's why we have to sell space. We have to grant the T's space. We have to gamble, right? In exchange for us as CTs to take other spaces. Now, the last thing with CT side macro positioning that I'm going to talk about is grouping. This is pretty similar to gamble stacking or playing for retake, but it's just a general concept that you have to be very cognizant of, and that's just playing with your team. Too many teams make so many solo plays. For example, if we're playing 2 mid and 3 B, let's say, and then the T's run out A and they smoke cams, if somebody just runs through this cam smoke and tries to take this 1v5 as the T's are running out, they're gonna die. It's not gonna work. So we need to group and play together in order to make this retake work. And what that means is that our rotate over towards A has to be in sync, right? Maybe we can send 2 through E box to play this flank, and then we can send 3 out here towards cams, and we can do a little split through cams and through A main. So now we're kind of getting into the T-sided brain because retakes are essentially just roles reverse. CTs have to push into a space, Ts have to hold that space, right? My main point here, look at the minimap. Just look at the minimap. So many people don't look at the minimap nearly enough and they don't know what's going on. Train yourself to constantly be aware of your teammates' positioning from a macro standpoint. The game will simplify itself so much more because then you'll understand, where are my teammates playing, what space do we have, what space do we not have, and how can we group in an effective way to play for retake, or how can we group an effective way to hold different pushes. Okay, that was a lot of info. I hope you're still with me. If you are, like this video and subscribe to my channel. Okay. All right, let's move on to T-side macro positioning. Macro positioning from the T-side perspective is a little bit harder to approach than the CT side perspective. On CT, the defaults are really kind of clear. Like, there's just a general, very well understood default for every map that generally works. On T side, there is that, but I would say T side defaults are just a bit more fluid than CT defaults. T side defaults can often be very reactive to how the CTs take space at the beginning of the round. So for example, here on Ancient, if the CTs are throwing an instant elbow smoke and then molly, nade, they're taking mid super early, as Ts, how we react to that is that we run up shelf and we take cave, right? A mid player comes up, they drop a molly boxes, these two take jag, either kill this guy or force him to retreat. So we exchange this mid space in order for us to take jag and hopefully take cave. Now, alternatively, if the CTs play mid very passively, we can swing numbers over towards mid and maybe run 3 out mid. We smoke red off early, we swing mid together, and we take this mid space fast, and then we can leave 1 bottom B and then 1 outside A patrolling this push. So then we're exchanging that space based on how the CTs are approaching the map. What I'm trying to say here is that T-side defaults can often really change depending on what skill level you're at. So if you're playing a team at a high level who's throwing instant elbow smokes and taking mid aggressively, then swinging 3 out mid every round, not gonna work. But if you're playing a team who doesn't know how to control mid or fight for mid properly as a CT, then as Ts, your default can just be taking mid every round, right? That's really strong. This space is really good to take. So T-side defaults a bit more dynamic and a bit more fluid than CT defaults. However, in between maps, the overall goal of T-side defaults are consistent. It's to get information, take space, and to get picks. What that looks like is going to change depending on what map you're on. For example, on Vertigo, taking space middle is way less important than taking space ramp. If we're able to take ramp, then we can threaten an A exec at any point, right? If we have full ramp, we could throw a gap smoke, we could throw a right side, we could throw molly towards heaven, right? We could execute at any time. That forces the CTs to play 2 or even 3 holding A at all times. For that reason, because the space is so strong for Ts to control, that means that on T-side defaults, you'll typically send 3 Ts towards bottom ramp, 1 controlling mid, and then 1 controlling B. So think about the spaces on maps that opens the round up if you have control of them as a T from a macro perspective. Inferno, it's banana. If you have banana control, you can threaten to execute B site at any point. For Vertigo, it's ramp control. If you have ramp control, you can threaten to execute A at any point. If you don't, the CTs can can just sit here, play info, and then send numbers towards mid and B, and you're in a pretty tough spot at that point. For Nuke, it's outside. If you take outside control, you can pinch A through mini, you can wrap heaven, you can go secret. For Mirage, it's middle. If you have middle control, you get my point. So from an individual aspect, if you want to have the most impact you can, focus on these areas in your T side defaults. If you can be a contributing member and take ramp with your team, that's impact. Even if you don't get any kills, taking this space from a macro view is very valuable. So once we've defaulted, this is the next topic, which is leaning or grouping. Generally just the mid round, right? The mid round is about 40, 50, 60 seconds into the round. What are we gonna do now? Let's say we take ramp, it's a 4v4, we got to trade in order to take ramp. What now? We have 2 on ramp, we have 1 mid, we have 1 B. Now it's time that we group and decide what we're going to do. So many rounds fizzle out because defaults last too long. When defaults last a long time, people start poking and prodding too much. Maybe one guy runs out mid and dies while there's no pressure towards A, no pressure towards B. So this CT mid is comfortable just sitting here waiting for this guy to swing. Maybe this B guy who's over here alone runs up and tries to take a fight, right? We have to play our numbers. Now, here's what I mean by numbers. Let's look at this situation. We get this kill on A, so it's 2 on A. We have 2 ramp. We have 1 mid, 1 B, 1 B. If each of us push this right now, we're giving a 2v2 on A, we're giving a 1v1 on mid, and we're giving a 1v1 on B. Not great odds. Not great odds, right? Defensive players, CTs, have the inherent advantage of their positioning being completely unknown most of the time. This guy could be Guardian, he could be under sandbags, he could be here, he could be here, he could be boosted, he could be a number of places. All the T can do is push this choke, right? That's the inherent advantage of CT. That's why numbers is incredibly important, because if we bring numbers over towards A, right, this guy comes downstairs and he walks towards A, boom, now we can smoke short, we can smoke gap here, now we can smoke right side as well. Okay, cool, let's say we just have those 2 smokes down. So in this situation, if we have numbers towards A and we're able to trade out these 2 kills, let's say this guy goes elevator, he gets 1 kill and then he gets traded, boom, gone, one of our T's gone. Let's say this guy jumps up headshot, he gets 1 and then he gets traded, boom, gone. T's gone. We go, we plant, these guys are rotating in, and then all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a 2v2 situation where now we have that CT's defender's advantage of being the holders. We can be anywhere. They don't know. We could have walked up cat, we could be sandbag, we could be ramp. They're the ones who now have to push the choke points and clear the space, which is inherently just disadvantageous. So that's why trading is so good and pushing with numbers is so good. So think about these rounds in terms of numbers. Now let's talk about rotates on the T side. When do you want to rotate? Why should you rotate? So if we come B, let's say the call out of spawn is let's go B. We come B, we're flashing through, we're making a ton of noise, we get smoked off, but now the CTs know, like, oh my god, there's a shit ton of them B stairs. They're going to be rotated B. As Ts, we don't really want to push this anymore. We don't necessarily have an advantage. They have util down, they have numbers on B now. We've kind of lost our element of surprise, of numbers, of being able to overwhelm them. Once we get slowed down, that's when we have to slow down and play the rest of the round out. So many people panic and just want to push, 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 push. Slow down, look at the mini-map, retake some space, rotate on over towards A, retake ramp, because the likelihood is that A players rotated off, maybe there's still one there, but our numbers advantage is now much better over towards A. And so when we're doing that, we also have to think about the sound. As we rotate, what information are we giving the CTs? If we all just book it and run away, they're gonna hear that and they're gonna rotate a ton towards A. But if we slow it down and we shift walk over, they're still worried about, oh, maybe they're just gonna re-exec into B. Maybe they're just gonna pop out at any moment. And they're probably gonna keep 2 here still. And so that means that there's gonna be 1 mid and there's most likely gonna be 2 A. And so if we walk all up ramp with 3 or 4 or 5 people, now we have a numbers advantage over towards A. Similar to fill the gap on CT side, on T side, you have to be looking at the minimap and envisioning how this round is going to play out. If 3 people run up ramp, they have bomb, and they get a kill, you're stuck on B, and your mid player dies, there's not a whole lot you can do on B anymore. Your mid player can't pressure mid anymore. If you walk up, you're just going to take this 1v1. So you have to come to the decision, either I'm going to do this crazy lurk play where once I hear this B, I rotate, I'm going to walk out and try to flank, or I'm just going to go towards A and go with my my team and we can execute A together. The worst thing you can do is be really indecisive in these decisions where like your team is very, very clearly wanting to go A and finish at A, but you're just sitting here having no impact, just waiting. So be very cognizant, very responsive to what's happening on the minimap from that macro positional standpoint of my team is doing this, I should do this in response. Okay, macro positioning, we're fucking done with it. Throw it out the window, dude. Just kidding. It actually has a lot to do with micro positioning, which is what we're going to talk about next. CT micro positioning. How can you position yourself on a site to hold executes, to kill lurks, to just get kills in general? Micro positioning is a bit more nuanced and individualistic and a little bit harder to approach than macro positioning, but I'm going to do my best to give you valuable things that you can apply into your games. The first thing is macro positioning's effect on your micro positioning. This has to do with where we're trying to take space and what numbers do we have at those spaces. For example, on Inferno, if we send 3 towards B early, we should be fighting for banana control, right? From a micro standpoint, if we send 3 towards B and then we're all just sitting site, what's the point? We want to take this space, so then we can rotate 2 off and go towards A and keep 1 here to anchor. We also have to think about the macro positioning of the opponent team. Where are they sending numbers typically? If they're sending 4 banana every round and we just have 2 banana, this is pretty hard to take banana in this situation. This is where from a macro positioning standpoint, our CTs on A can take space towards A. So instead, we can dump some nades and then play back towards site and let the A players take some space, get some good flanks in, so then our hold here can be a bit better. One micro positioning concept that you need to know is off angles versus on angles. Now, on angles are angles that Ts are expecting. They're kind of the default angles, like this is where people like to fight, right? CT standing here holding this angle, that's an on angle. That's an angle that Ts are going to be very ready to fight. An off angle is more so back here. Lots of times an off angle won't have cover. There's not a place where you can easily back up to, right? If I'm standing here and I'm holding this off angle, Ts aren't necessarily expecting this fight because they're walking out, they're looking towards site. If I'm standing right there, I can get an easy kill. So the power of off angles is the power of surprise. Ts will be worried about other angles because this is not a normal, angle that people hold. The problem with off angles is that they're very tradable. Because I don't have cover, if I get a kill and then a T immediately swings out, I'm in a position where I can get traded very easily. This means that off angles are very good against lurks. Lurk plays where Ts will just shift walk up and be very quiet and are gonna hunt for a little kill here, a little pick. That's where off angles really strive because Ts won't be expecting them and they won't have numbers to get that trade. However, against an execute, off angles are a bit less efficient because Ts are ready to get those trades, and off angles you don't have cover. So as a very general rule, if you're expecting an execute, if you're expecting numbers to run at you, on angles are a bit better. If you're expecting lurks, 1 person, 1 fight, off angles are extremely efficient. Now, how do we use on angles efficiently? If we're standing here and just holding this, I'm probably gonna die. I mean, it's an angle. It's a right eye angle against another right eye angle, right? So that's pretty even. But in CS2, there's peeker's advantage. Even on LAN, in the most perfect conditions, I haven't played LAN. I'm said that as if I haven't played LAN. The point remains, even in the most perfect conditions, peeker's advantage will always exist just because of human reaction times, right? If I'm peeking and I'm peeking a certain angle, my brain is prepped and ready the moment I see somebody to shoot them. And so I have my own timer where because I'm peeking, I know the exact timing of when I'm going to see them. But as a CT, if I'm holding an angle, I rely on their timing. If they're peeking me, I'm the one who has to react to their peek. You get what I mean? So when you hold on angles for a long time, you give the Ts the slight advantage of peeking, and this not even taking into account ping or the actual latency effect of peeker's advantage. My point is, you can't just sit in on angles forever and expect to win a ton of fights. Now, this is where 2 core concepts about micro positioning comes in: crossfires and contact. Crossfires describes a setup where your opponent has to expose themselves to both enemy players at the same time on different angles. So if I'm sitting here and then I have another CT on right side new box there, a T who walks out here is going to expose themselves to both of these angles at once. We're essentially guaranteed a trade. If not, we're guaranteed just to kill him. This is why util is so important on T side to shut down crossfires, because a CT smoke eliminates a ton of crossfires between CT and site. However, even if you're not in a setup with a CT on a proper crossfire, a huge golden rule of holding angles is to play natural crossfires. What I mean by this is that if I'm holding this angle, this is a natural crossfire, where if a T crosses here, they have to worry about both coffin and this off angle on new box. Even if we don't have a CT sitting coffin, Ts don't know that. They're gonna try to clear coffin, and then I'm sitting here with their back turned to me and can get a free, easy kill. These angles are so strong because you're gonna get so many fights where Ts aren't even looking at you. Another example could be here at the pillar, holding this kind of angle, where Ts, as they scale up, they're gonna be worried about new box. A T who has the CT smoke down and they're swinging, they're worried about new box, they're worried about first orange because they just cleared dark, right? They're not worried about it. And then boom, they expose themselves to you here. And so I really want you to focus on these angles where you know that Ts are going to be worried about other places other than where you are. Taking fights where you are the only thing that they have to clear. This is a huge problem that I see in lower levels where people will just sit on these on angles where that's the only fight they have to worry about. A T can walk up here, contact CT, contact coffin, boom, and then just isolate that fight. Get that 1v1 that's very easy for them to win. Now let's talk about contact plays. Contact plays are where we allow one CT to take first contact in order to draw attention away from the second swinger. So if we have the setup where one's new box and they take a little fight here, right? The Ts are scaling up. The Ts then shift their focus towards new box, and that allows this guy coffin to swing while the Ts aren't looking at him. So it's kind of a bait and switch play where one person takes attention, other person cleans up the kills. This is so important. I know it sounds just like a cheeky little play that you can do. No, this is a universal, incredibly important concept because this is how you shut down executes. If instead of doing that contact play, I sit here and I hold this angle and then I take like a 1v3 here and then I die, and then this guy sits here new box and then he takes a 1v3 and he dies, right? We have very little chance of winning that round. So on sites, you have to play with your teammates. You have to play those contact plays where you're baiting Ts into worrying about one thing and then boom, a CT swings from another angle. So in terms of figuring out where to position yourself on a site, you need to think about crossfires, natural crossfires, and where can we play contact plays, right? If we have, let's say, one pit, one in sight, and then one in balk, this creates natural crossfires and contact plays we can do where maybe the sight guy takes first contact and then boom, pit swings. Or maybe this balk guy takes first contact and then sight swings. Am I holding an angle where I'm the only thing they have to worry about, right? If I'm sitting pit and I'm just holding short like this, I'm the only thing as they swing that they have to worry about aside from like maybe top balk if they swing short here. But when we focus on these crossfires, these hot zones, right? On A, this is the crossfire zone. This is the hot zone where Ts have to expose themselves to sight, to pit, to balk, to mini pit. They have to expose themselves to a ton of different angles. That's the zone that we want to focus on and position ourselves in a way where we can all focus on that zone and have a natural crossfire where we can contact, we can kill one, duck out, another one of us swings, gets another kill, duck out, right? Those are the hardest places to push through when CTs are playing it correctly. The last thing with CT micro-positioning I'm going to talk about is repositioning. One piece of advice you're going to hear a lot is to play with rifles as if you're playing with an op. What that means is that when you play an angle, you should have a plan B, a plan C, fallback points, right? So for example, if we're playing short, I get a kill here, I can fall back and now I can hold boiler from a deeper position and do a slight readjustment, slight reposition. If I get a kill here, I can fall back and now I can run sight and I can play anywhere on sight. The point of this is to not give Ts easy trades. If I get a kill here and I sit here and I wait, I am so tradable because I'm staying in the exact same position that I was. It's very easy for Ts to just swing me and get this kill because they know where I am. So after you get a kill, be unpredictable. Don't let the Ts know exactly where you are. Reposition, be dynamic, be fluid, be unpredictable. Along the same line of thinking, be unpredictable in how you start the round out. If I sit here on this angle at the beginning of every single round, and this is the first fight I take every round, the Ts are gonna figure that out and they're gonna be able to counter me. Switch it up and be unpredictable with your first contact, right? Even if I'm playing short, this feels like a very limiting amount of space, but you can play this in so many ways. You can creep up and play an off angle close mid and swing somebody if you hear their footsteps. You can play this crossfire here. You can play on this side of the balk and hold boiler. You can play deep and just hold boiler. You can get boosted up on top of balk. You can play it in so many different ways. So don't be predictable in how you're starting off rounds. Be unpredictable, reposition, change your location, be dynamic, be fluid. T-side micro positioning. Like I talked about in the beginning, you remember that? That was a while ago. It's all about spacing between teammates to enable trades to happen. Let's say we're scaling up mid as 2 of us. I have a buddy here with me. If we both walk along this right wall, we are begging to get swung on and collatted by somebody, right? However, if one guy walks along close and the other guy walks a little wider behind him, this second guy can hold the swing as we scale up and clear these off angles, and then this close guy will be the first one to contact these close range fights, swing out hard, create space. That's the important thing. If you're the first guy swinging, you need to create space. If this first guy just does a tight little swing, then again, we're going to be in a line and we're going to be begging to get collatted. That's why this first guy needs to swing hard, clear the space fast, and if somebody is here, the onus is typically on the second player to get that trade, to get that kill. So if we're executing a side or trying to take space really fast, as this first player, the entry, right, I need to path in a way where I clear out a lot of space all at once. And this pathing will depend on your util, right? So if we have a smoke cams, let's say we don't have any more smokes, and then we just have some flashes through window. As this player entering, I'm going to expose myself to a lot of angles at once. That is okay, because I have a second, third, fourth guy here ready to trade me at whatever angle I die from. So this first guy swinging needs to swing fast and hard and needs to clear a lot of space at once in order to figure out where these CTs are. What's important as a second, third, fourth guy in is that you need to be in a position to trade this first guy out, right? So if this first guy scales up really fast in towards sight and goes around and clears here, and then everybody else runs up here, this can be a difficult position to trade if we have a CT tucked right here. So the second guy or third guy needs to be on this guy's ass, following him, ready to get that trade. The simple core principle here is that we need to be grouped, right? We need to be close to each other as this execute comes out. If we go one by one, we're gonna die one by one, and we're not going to guarantee these trades. We can guarantee these trades by being together, by being grouped, by scaling as 2s, as 3s, getting out, figuring out where they are, and getting those trades quickly. Now on the flip side, when we're not being relentless, when we're going slow, maybe we're going for a lurk play or just trying to work a pick, this is where isolating fights is incredibly important. This is where you go nice and slow, you clear out space, boom, you peek angles one by one. If we're going somewhere together and fast, you can't be doing this shit. You're gonna slow your team down a ton. It's just not good. You need to be going fast and clearing space. But if you're just pushing this as 1 or as 2 people, this is where you can be way more meticulous in your clears, way more meticulous with your crosshair placement, with clearing space, with just looking for these one singular fight so that you can get a pick. If you are able to get a pick in these situations, take that space, right? From a macro perspective, we are typically expecting 1 on A, 2 on mid, and 2 on B here on Anubis. So if I walk out A, and let's say I get this pick broken, I'm immediately expecting a close rotate from mid, but I have space I can take. If I get this kill, boom, I can swing. Okay, I didn't see him. Now I can dump my util towards cams. Maybe I can drop a molly towards heaven, and I can take some space heaven. Use your picks to leverage space. I get a kill, that enables me to take this space, which makes the following fights much easier for me to win. T-side micro positioning, I would say, has a lot to do with game sense. So if you haven't seen it, go check out my game sense video, because this will help out your positioning so much. This was a long ass video. If you watched the whole thing, please like it and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this, and shout out to my channel members. They're scrolling on by. Thank you guys for allowing me to be a goober on the internet. I appreciate you guys tons. Have a wonderful day, and good luck and have fun in all of your future games.